What would happen if you built a refuge for a persecuted people in a place where another people already lived? In the next few minutes, you'll learn why this moral quandary is at the root of the struggle between Israelis and Palestinians, and what you can do to help achieve a just peace for everyone in the region. First, there are a couple of things it's helpful to understand. One, many Jews fled harsh persecution in anti-Semitic Europe, especially the Nazi Holocaust. Zionists encouraged massive immigration to historic Palestine, at that time a British colony, where Jews had an age-old connection and where small Jewish communities had long existed among larger groups of indigenous peoples. But when the UN offered the Jewish immigrants the majority of the land for a new state called Israel, for the indigenous Palestinians who lived there, it was a massive destruction of life. They rejected the UN's partition plan, and several Arab states invaded the new state of Israel. Israeli forces essentially erased over 400 Palestinian villages and towns. By the end of the fighting, Israel controlled 78% of historic Palestine. And when 750,000 Palestinians who fled or were expelled during fighting tried to return to their homes where the new state now stood, they were permanently barred by the Israeli government. While over 100,000 of their relatives and neighbors who hadn't left became second-class citizens of the new state, along with the new Jewish majority. Today, Palestinian refugees and their descendants number in the millions. Most are in the Gaza Strip, the West Bank, and Jordan. Many are spread throughout the world, with millions still living in refugee camps, seeking to return to their homeland. To sum up, one group of refugees found a much-needed home, but in the process, a new group of refugees was created. Here's the second thing to understand. Israel was founded as a Jewish state. But now ask yourself, what exactly does that mean? People had lots of ideas about what a Jewish state should look like. Some called for equality for all citizens. But what was created, in practice, was institutional discrimination against non-Jews. In other words, Israel ended up being built on a blueprint of exclusion. The Israeli government wants maximum land and resources for Jews, but not the Palestinians living there. That's why, inside Israel, Jews get special privileges, including rights to land and housing, that are denied to the Palestinian citizens, who make up 20% of Israel's population. That's also part of why Israel has never defined its borders. In fact, they still hold on to land, the West Bank and Gaza, that they conquered in the war in 1967. Since then, Israel has built Jewish settlements throughout the occupied West Bank, building Jewish-only cities and supplying them with infrastructure like roads and army camps, schools, and even a college. Military occupations are meant to be temporary, but after 40-plus years, this one looks permanent and entirely unjust. In the West Bank, Israeli Jewish settlers and Palestinians live on the same land, but must live under two completely separate and unequal systems of Israeli law. The Jewish settlers dominate the natural resources, including water and agricultural land, and they're backed by the Israeli army. To maintain the occupation, Israel has demolished thousands of Palestinian homes and orchards, confiscated Palestinian land, bombed a captive civilian population in Gaza, and punished resistance with raids, arrests, and assassinations, all to gain maximum land, while making life so difficult for Palestinians that they will either leave or be too afraid to resist. Palestinians have fought back. For decades, they tried to achieve national liberation through armed struggle. Some groups still do. But the majority now support popular protest instead. The deeply harmful pattern of control, repression, and violence profoundly harms Palestinians living under occupation and Israelis living as occupiers. This must be broken to reach a peaceful and secure future for both peoples. Now that you understand the problem, what about the solution? What about peace talks? So far, over 2 decades of U.S.-backed peace talks have actually made things worse by helping Israel continue the occupation. It's been years of talking while Israel massively expanded the Jewish settlements and literally redrew the map. Peace talks are good if they're real, but not when they're theater to cover a land grab. So now what? The current world superpower, the United States, has been a terrible friend, enabling Israel's destructive and self-destructive expansion onto Palestinian land by funding the Israeli military, the biggest recipient of U.S. foreign aid in the world. But there's another superpower that can make the difference: you. There's a movement with hundreds of thousands of people just like you across the world, including Palestinians and Israelis, protesting, educating, divesting, and boycotting, all to bring nonviolent international pressure on Israel to stop violating human rights of Palestinians. Throughout history, where governments have failed to push for justice, people just like you, like us, have taken the lead and won. Now it's the Palestinians' turn for freedom and justice. We can pressure Israel to end the occupation and the discrimination. We want all people, Jews and Palestinians, to have equality, human rights, and democracy. We can change history.
Hello everyone. I believe and I'm sure that most of you are kind of familiar with the issue you just seen. This matter has been ongoing for more than 70 years now. But actually what's bigger, that no solution had been addressed. Many solutions have been addressed, but none were taken into consideration. And none made the two sides happy. Innocent people are still dying up to this moment. And as I said, many solutions have been made and addressed, but no one actually was taken seriously and helpful to give an ultimate solution to it. So today, from St. Louis University, Madrid, and as a poly-science student here, I decided to readdress and to address a solution that it has already been there, which is the two-state solution. And as you may know, and you get the idea of it from the name, the two-state solution is basically sharing the land between those two countries. So this solution was addressed many times, but no one came to agreement to it. So this time I decided to readdress the issue and make it focus more on the younger generation. And what I came up with is two people, one of each side, that I'm gonna have an interview with and kind of get their idea about this ultimate solution. So, could you introduce yourself and how you're familiar with the issue and how you're connected to it?
Well, my name's Jenny. I'm actually half Israeli, and although I don't know that side of my family, I've been to Israel. I actually went to Israel last summer on birthright, and we went to a lot of different areas in Israel, like Jerusalem, Tel Aviv, a bunch of different areas, and I got to see how Israelis live. And I also have met some Arabs in Israel also, and they talked about how they actually live alongside Israelis, and that was really eye-opening to me on my trip to Israel.
Wow, I actually didn't know that they actually live side to side.
There are certain communities where they do work together and live together. Yeah,
that's nice. So, I'm sure you've heard about the two-state solution and how it was kind of a big deal a couple of years ago, but wasn't taken into consideration anymore. So, but my project is about the two-state solution, but it's more focused on and centered about the younger generation, just like about us, like the 20 years old. Mm-hmm. And a question for you: do you believe that we can make a difference, even if it's a really small one?
Mm-hmm. I definitely think that there's always a way to make a difference, and I think in the case of a two-state solution, I think it's really important in order to make a difference that we really define what a two-state solution means, because there are so many different interpretations out there, and I think in order to actually make a difference, we need to all come together and we need to know what we're fighting for in a way. And I think in order to do that, as a younger generation, we need to talk to our state representatives and make petitions and peaceful protests. I think that's the most effective way of making a difference as a younger generation, being that older generations are usually the people in power and are the ones who are making the decisions for us. I think those are some ways that we can get their attention and try to make a difference that way.
That's true, yeah. And kind of moving to the next question. Do you think such a solution could be effective? Like, do you think those who are in high position actually would listen to us?
That's hard to say. Throughout history, you never really know whether your small attempt at making a difference will actually work and will actually pass the attention of the people in charge. But I don't think it hurts to try. And I think that putting together an effort, and even younger generations, we grew up in like the internet and social media era, and I think we make a lot of our difference through internet, through social media. And I think that could actually create a lot of attention and could make a difference. And I think that would actually help in the case to make people in power aware of the power that younger generations have, because it is our future. Definitely.
It is our future. It's the future of everyone. Kind of moving to the last question. Would you yourself do something kind of like a really small thing, kind of to change thing? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think just educating myself, like even taking a political science class like I am now, a Middle East class, is really important. And the more educated younger generations are, the more we'll be able to dictate our future. And I think that even signing a petition online, anything as simple as that, and even going to the extreme, like of going to a peaceful protest or things like that, and me going to Israel in general was like a way to educate myself on the issues. So I think education is the main factor.
Definitely, I agree. So all we hope is a peace that never unites everyone, and that's all we need. So thank you so much, Jen.
Of course.
Thank you. So, could you introduce yourself and how you're kind of familiar with the issue?
I'm Mahmoud. I'm a poli science student in SLU. I come from the Middle East, so I have a major background about the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. I mean, growing up in the Middle East, what was focused on in the media is Palestinian-Israeli conflict, so I know.
Sure. So I'm sure you've heard about the two-state solution and how it was there for a couple of years, but was never taken into like seriously or like making a peaceful sign out of it.
Mm-hmm.
So, but this time my project is addressing the same thing. However, it's focused on younger generation and what they can do. So a question for you, do you believe we can make a difference, at least like a small one, like from your perspective, as a younger Middle Eastern girl?
Well, from my perspective, I think it all depends on the government, the Israeli government and the Palestinian government, how they get along. If they don't get along, I don't think there's going to be a change. And basically, the recent events of the big return, there's, that is in the Palestinian side, and there have been some conflicts through history between Palestinians and Israelis. So I think it depends on the country itself, on the people themselves there. If they want to get along, they will get along. Their voices will be heard, and everyone will hear them, and they're gonna say stop the conflict. We want peace between each other. But if they don't want to, I don't think.
So you're basically saying that that the time made it kind of harder to address the issue.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And kind of another question. Do you believe people in high positions, like as you said, governments, would hear to some kind of like this idea that younger generation can do something?
Yeah, they will hear us if we start to speak about it, through social media. I mean, the power of it and how we can spread our thoughts about the conflict, and actually Palestinians and Israelis also can, by signing petitions, I don't know, they can, we can, send our voices to these,
of course,
to the governments, basically.
Of course. We hope something will happen one day and that brings peace to everyone. So thank you so much.